Of course, there were tons of eyes across the nation on the top 10 recruiting classes in the country for college football on National Signing Day this past Wednesday. But one school up north in the state of Michigan also drew tons of attention way down the list, and for a number of reasons that we all are pretty familiar with. We bring in Anthony Broome of Malzone Brew on the SB Nation platform from Michigan Athletics. Anthony, we appreciate the time, and let's cut right to the drama of National Signing Day. You were right in the middle of it in terms of trying to keep track of everything. Jim Harbaugh hits the scene, of course, much as expected. Was it a disappointing day, or hey, let's call off the alarms, everything's fine, and we just have to take this in stride and understand the situation overall?
Yeah, overall, I think they did a pretty nice job on signing day. They missed out on a few of their top guys with Chris Clark and Mike Weber. Not huge surprises. It seemed like those two situations could have gone either way. They were able to get the class to 14 players. Four players did commit on Wednesday. You had defensive back Keith Washington, running back Karan Higdon, defensive end Shelton Johnson, and tight end Tyrone Wheatley Jr. So they did a nice job. It's not a class that's going to jump off the page or anything, but given the circumstances of when the staff was hired or when they were brought in, they did a good job finishing things up.
Yeah, so if you're going to take me through the day and the way it hit you in regards to, I think the national narrative, of course, not understanding the situation as well as you and just knowing, okay, Harbaugh shows up, much as expected. It's got to start with day one. It's got to start with his first recruiting class. Not understanding the challenges and the liabilities of starting so late in the process, trying to build those relationships in a very short manner. Where you stood in regards to expectations versus what finally was on the dotted line at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expected the staff to kind of be able to come in and really put their stamp on the class in a big way, you know, flipping some of the bigger guys on their board, getting a Chris Clark, flipping a Mike Weber, stuff like that. In terms of my reactions on that, like I said before, I think they did a pretty good job. They only had 3 weeks to kind of wrap their class up, and they cast a pretty wide net in terms of players they were looking at. The staff was in California, Texas, on the East Coast, down in Florida. They were hitting all those pipelines you need to hit to be a recruiting power. And while it didn't necessarily pay off on signing day, it will certainly pay off down the road for them, starting 2016.
Most coaches have the obligatory news conference at the end of the day to talk about the recruiting class, or possibly the next day. With a lot of coach speak, of course, they got all the guys that they wanted to get. Did Jim Harbaugh maybe become a little bit more forthcoming? I've heard a few comments across the country from different head coaches that were a little bit more realistic and forthcoming in their comments. So could you get a read on what the coach had to say?
It was, like you said, it was pretty much coach speak, stuff you would expect to hear. You know, what else are they going to say? They like the guys they have. They all kind of fit what they're looking for, you know, in terms of wanting to be there. They're all smart, nice kids. They're all hard workers. So I think it certainly sounded like Jim Harbaugh was happy with that. Had nothing but good things to say about the kids he brought in. So wasn't a whole lot to take from that, as you know, anyone who's followed a Jim Harbaugh press conference knows he's not going to give away much. But overall, it seems like they're pretty pleased with what they were able to accomplish.
So Rivals had you at 50, the Composite at 38, and ESPN at number 40 in the nation. Take into consideration, of course, not talking to you, but everybody else out there. With 14 commits, that pales in comparison to the typical 20 to 28, something in that range for most of the schools. So that had a lot to do with it. The quality's there much more than the quantity. We talked about some of these kids a couple weeks ago in preparing for National Signing Day. Who are the guys that you're really amped up to see on the stage in the big house?
You know, I think it starts right at the quarterback position. That's an unresolved battle they're going to have going into fall camp. They brought in 2 in this class, both 4-star kids, with Alex Malzone, who committed under Brady Hoke's staff. Fantastic player, had a great year in his senior year at Brother Bryce. Won Mr. Football at the state of Michigan. And the one I'm really interested to see is Zach Gentry, the kid that they flipped from Texas. 6'7", 230, huge arm, fantastic upside. He's mobile in the pocket. So I don't know if either of those guys are necessarily going to start in year one, but those are the guys down the road that I'm really interested in seeing. How they end up panning out.
It's good to see that there's still some pocket passes out there, Anthony.
Yeah.
With everybody running the same thing, that was exciting 10 years ago when teams were starting to break out, like Urban Meyer at Utah and some other schools that were breaking out with this read option and getting away from the pro style attack. It was interesting to watch, but everybody's running it. I'm getting kind of tired of seeing the same offense run by everybody, and it's just basically who's got the better athletes out there right now that are executing the best. I love to see a fullback once in a while. I love to see a little play action guy that really can deliver the ball out of the pocket. And it seems like Jim Harbaugh's basically committed to that style of offense.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be something we haven't seen in Ann Arbor for the last 7 years or so consistently. You're going to see the H-back. You're going to see the fullback. You're going to see, these quarterbacks taking snap from under center. It's like you said, the athletes are kind of the ones that are winning out right now, but I think Jim Harbaugh will be able to bring a hard-nosed style of football that they'll be able to execute and compete at the highest level with.
And when you think athletes, you think SEC, so you would think of all places it wouldn't be successful down there, but that's probably the last bastion of a significant number of teams that still, when you look at Georgia, Alabama, LSU, some teams that still go with a pro-style attack, still utilize a fullback, still drop back the passer. Not that they're not using the read option and doing those concepts as well, but have some semblance of what we saw in college football 15 years ago and in the NFL, which is, of course, the copycat league that's actually copying off college football these days. All right, Anthony, we appreciate the time. Is there anything else that stands out that we need to cover on Michigan?
I expect them to have a top 10-ish kind of class for 2016. So I know that's kind of the expectations the staff has and what the fans have for them. So it's going to be really fun to follow along and see how they compete with Michigan State and Ohio State on the trail.
Yeah, that race for 2016 has been going on for quite some time, and we heard almost as much about 2016 as we did about the current class for a lot of these schools on National Signing Day. Anthony Broome of Mason Brew, Michigan's platform for the SB Nation site. We appreciate the time, Anthony. It's good stuff. We always love to hear the insight and hope to have you back soon.
Anytime, Mark. Thanks for having me.